give more returns. Get more security and more interest on your fixed deposits from Sri Lanka's largest finance company, LMDtv Finance.
The key to quality and efficiency. Be a jewel. Professionalism is the jewel in the corporate crown.
Refresh Sri Lanka for a civic-minded society. In association with AICPA and CIMA and 99X. LMD, the voice of business.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. Tonight on the forum, we're zooming in on the insurance sector. And with us, we have the Managing Director of Amana Takaful Insurance, Hassan Kassim. It's very nice to have you on the show, Hassan.
Thanks a lot, Ruwandi. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
To start off our discussion today, Hassan, can you give us a brief overview of the sector as of today, especially given that there is an inherent challenge on top of all the other challenges. There's an inherent challenge that Sri Lanka doesn't have much penetration when it comes to insurance. So against this backdrop, can you give us a brief overview of how the sector is really performing against the macroeconomic challenges?
So to begin, it's been a fairly interesting year, well, not only for insurance, but across the board, across other industries as well, I'm sure. And we as a industry had a fairly mixed year. There were certain things that worked on our behalf and certain things that went against us. For example, motor and non-motor in the first half of last year actually grew. And that is primarily because we always see when the sum insured, the cost of importing or there were no imports, the cost of a vehicle went up due to the lack of imports. And therefore, what that did was it automatically took vehicle prices up and therefore premiums went up as well. So that was seen both in motor and non-motor as well. But medical, on the other hand, and life had a little bit of a slowdown, mainly because COVID ended. So people were not as concerned as having their medical insurances in place. So once that phenomenon was noticed in the first half of the year, towards the second half of the year, we suddenly noticed a little bit of a slowdown. That is, again, because interest rates went up, and then when interest rates go up, people are not as likely to go out for new leases. So we saw, while the first half of the year had a pretty strong growth, towards the second half of last year, things started declining. That was on the GWP and revenue side. Then we also saw, in terms of our claims costs started spiking up. Spare part prices went up, hospitalization costs went up. So as an industry, we are struggling with this escalation in costs at the moment. We had a mixed year in terms of GWP, but in terms of claims, we're actually taking a big beating at the moment. We expect this trend to kind of continue throughout this year as well, because things haven't really gained momentum again. And we also expect claims costs to continue to be in this high range. So this year is also going to be tough.
We're seeing that Sri Lanka is facing severely plummeting disposable income levels. How is this changing the game for the sector? How is it really impacting the sector?
Yeah, so the first thing that people tend to do when they're struggling for their day-to-day essentials is they try to prioritize that versus any other payments that they have to make. And unfortunately, life insurance premiums are one of those things that people put in the back burner. And we have actually noticed on the life side that lapses have increased. So people are just unable to continue to afford to make their payments on a monthly basis. And then even on the general side, people tend to become a little bit more cost conscious. They don't want to spend as much as they were spending on non-essentials as what they would deem non-essential. So therefore, we have seen people now shopping around, looking for better rates, and therefore cancellations on the general insurance business has also gone up quite a bit. Typically, insurance revolves around economic activity. So when disposable incomes start coming down, automatically that has a trickle effect on the whole economy, because people are out less. They essentially don't want to be doing their shoppings. They don't want to spend. Not only that, not only people, but also corporates don't want to invest as much. So automatically what happens then is the whole economic activity slows down, and therefore the requirement or demand for insurance also slows down. And then what happens when the demand for insurance slows down is insurance companies have no choice but to kind of cut prices, reduce their prices, which then leads to somewhat of a almost like a price war, where people are just then competing on prices, which is horrible for the industry, really. It takes a big beating then when people start competing on price.
Now to ask you about the buzzword of the day, the IMF loan. In your opinion, how does the IMF loan impacting the sector? Will it create positivity among consumers and change things around for insurance?
So the whole thing behind an IMF package, more than the money that it brings, is that it's almost like a statement to the world, right? We are telling the world, or well, not us, the IMF is telling the world that, look, these people are deserving of an IMF program, which means that they have, somehow got their act together and made the right changes. Because had we not, or as a country, had we not enacted any of those changes that we did, then we wouldn't have got this IMF package. So the fact that we have got the package is almost a statement. And when that statement goes out into the world, then that somehow restores a lot of confidence in terms of investors, in terms of lenders, which then automatically gives people a sense of confidence as well. With this IMF package, I'm sure we would slowly start seeing monetary policy getting loosened to a certain extent, which means that automatically rates start coming down. When rates start coming down, activity picks up again. So yeah, definitely in terms of a confidence boost, both to the outside world as well as to the general public and other local corporates and investors, there's a definite confidence boost. It's just that I think it's definitely going to take some time as well. It's not something that would happen overnight. And once the economy starts ramping up again, I think both from an insurance perspective, also, we would see things picking up again.
We recently saw that Fitch Ratings has noted that the domestic insurance market of Sri Lanka has really simple products that were not sophisticated in both the life and the general segments. Hassan, what is your take on this?
I absolutely agree. I think from a Sri Lankan perspective, we've barely scratched the surface when it comes to sophistication in our products, as well as innovation. I mean, if you were to even compare us versus other regions around us, or within, or of countries within the region, you would see India, Malaysia, countries like Singapore far ahead in terms of product sophistication and innovation. Just to give you an example, if hypothetically you and your friend owned a car in Sri Lanka and it was the same car, let's talk about a Toyota Prius or any particular car, which would be the same model that you and your friend owned, chances are that you and your friend would pay a very similar premium. This is not the case in most developed markets. It is highly unlikely that you and your friend would pay the same premium because there would be a lot of factors that go into calculating your premium versus your friend's premium. The sophisticated markets take into account things like where you live, where you park your car, and I've heard some markets even take into account things like what color of car that you drive, which would change your premium up or down. So whereas in Sri Lanka, we've only seen almost like a one size fits all. We don't see much customization depending on who the person is or what their specific requirements are. This, however, did change to a certain extent during COVID, where people had, insurance companies had no choice but to get a little bit more sophisticated in terms of their product offerings, because people became a lot more choosy at that point. They were thinking, look, if I drive my car just once a week or twice a week, why should I have to pay a premium that is calculated in the same manner as someone who drives his car every day? So we've seen companies come up with some new innovative products. I know there is a particular insurance company that came up with a pay per kilometer that you drive, and products like that, which are all brilliant. But in terms of us as an overall industry, I think we still have a very long way to go. But the good news is we've started.
And Hassan, given the very unfavorable economic environment that we're in, how important is customer centricity when it comes to insurance?
Right. So in terms of, let me talk about the innovation part first, and then I'll come to the whole customer centricity part. In terms of innovation, one of the things I've already mentioned was that, look, we need to start customizing our policies to the specific needs of the consumers. We can't continue with this one size fits all. Different people have different requirements, so therefore we have no choice but to offer them what they want, or else they're going to go looking outside and try to see what they can find. But it's not only in terms of the overall product portfolio that needs innovation, but overall in terms of the service delivery or the customer journey that needs a significant amount of improvement as well. We have seen in the past companies like Civicmindedness, they paved the way in terms of, enhancing the customer journey. They came up with things like Civicmindedness VIP, and they had certain companies put up rest stations as well. So the overall service and the customer experience is what really needs to be uplifted to a certain extent, especially with digitization, technology. People no longer want to communicate with or be on the phone communicating with an agent. They want to kind of do things on their own mobile devices. So I think there is a long way to go, not only in terms of the product, but we as a country should, or as an industry, should definitely look at how we uplift the whole customer experience or the customer journey. That is definitely going to be a crucial part in the coming years.
Insurance at the end of the day is all about financial risk management. So how should the sector really look at redefining and really changing the perception of customers by emphasizing the importance of insurance among Sri Lanka's public? How should sector players really get through to customers?
Yeah. So I think there are two things to this. One is in terms of making sure at the moment, the perception in the country across, or not everywhere, but to a certain extent, when I talk to people, and the first thing they say is, insurance, do they really pay claims? Typically, if I am insured, does the insurance company make its money by not paying claims? So that is typically the overall perception out there in the market. They are of the opinion that our job, or how we would make money, is by not paying claims. So in terms of changing this customer perception, we have to pretty much do a few things. First is in terms of how we interact with the customer at the time when they intimate a claim, or when their claim is being processed. How we make them feel is a very important part. At a time of a claim, I think a customer is at his or her most vulnerable point. Let's say you meet with an accident on the road, you're standing on the road trying to get through to your agent. It's a very frustrating process. So firstly, we have to give that user experience to a customer that makes him feel as comfortable as he can feel, so that it doesn't look like we are doing the customer any favors. It's just more that we are doing our duty by processing him and helping him out during this frustrating period or time. So we need to design our processes that make the customer feel like, look, we are here for you and we are going to look after you. So that should help, resolve this issue of perception to a certain extent. The second is in terms of educating the customer and, somehow getting them to a point to understand that, look, insurance is, or getting them to understand the benefits that insurance has and how it can impact them in their times of need. If a customer was to understand, look, this is how insurance benefits me, provides me with financial risk management, or gives me financial security at a time when I'm at a low, then it's a no-brainer. But by looking at the current penetration rates in the country, by looking at the large gap in the amount of people who are insured versus who are not insured, you can tell that this message hasn't really gone across. In Sri Lanka, I think you brought this up at the start of our conversation as well, insurance penetration is very low compared to the rest of the region as well. We have an insurance penetration in the general insurance industry of about 1.32%, and in the life insurance about 1%. So if you compare us versus the rest of the global average, which is almost 7%. So you can see that it's extremely low, which is, I would think, primarily due to the fact that the customer is not educated about what products that we can potentially have, or what insurance can potentially do for them. So I think there's a significant amount of work that we need to do to raise this awareness and help them change their perception about what insurance is and how it can help them. A lot of companies are doing this at the moment. You see, especially with the rise in social media, people have, come up with ways to promote insurance awareness. You see a lot more posts coming up on social media, and we are getting there, but it is a slow journey. I think one of the other things that we should also try to work with is work closely with the government. Because one of the things is that we see in other countries, the government or regulators have made it mandatory to have certain types of insurance. We see it over here as well in terms of the third-party insurance for your motor vehicle, where it's a mandatory requirement. But in countries like the UAE, no employer can employ somebody without them being covered under a medical insurance scheme.
It's time to take a short break. When we return, we'll get back to the insurance sector.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
You're mobile, and so are we.
Gets me going.
Grab the Lite 87 app at the Apple App Store or Google Play now.
87.8 and 87.6 island-wide. Lite 87.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking to the Managing Director of Amana Takaful Insurance, Hassan Kassim. Hassan, if I ask you about ethics, how important is it that the sector really streamlines insurance ethics today, and how challenging is it?
So, yeah, I think ethics is a large part about insurance. If insurers don't keep ethics at the heart of everything they do, then the entire system is going to crumble, because then consumers tend to lose confidence and think that this is more a scam than anything that offers them financial security. And it is something that we as insurance companies have to manage very carefully in terms of making sure, because these are people's lives that we're playing with, right? These are things that could either, if an insurance company was to choose to reject a claim, set a person back to the start of his either career or his job or his business, because that is suddenly you have some kind of calamity and the insurance company deems it invalid, or it deems it fit to reject the claim, then automatically that puts you back. So these are people's lives that we're playing with, and therefore ethics have to be at the heart of the whole concept. Now, thankfully, though, in Sri Lanka, we have a very strong regulator who has laid down numerous regulations and guidelines to protect the consumer. So if there is even, the slightest smell that there is something going wrong and the insurance company is not honoring their commitments or acting ethically, then the regulator immediately gets involved. They have in fact come up with various mechanisms where consumers can get in touch with the regulator directly. They have an ombudsman that people can go to if they want to put out any grievances that they have. So from the point of view of safeguarding a consumer and making sure that insurance companies are working ethically, I think those structures have been put in place very well by the regulator. But the thing, Ruwandi, is that ethics kind of cuts both ways, no? While insurance companies also need to act ethically, consumers too need to act in good faith. So most insured people do act in good faith, but there's still a slight percentage of people who would try to sneak in a claim which is not payable, something like an underage driver, for example. People think, okay, my son was driving, he's still not 18, but I'm insured anyway. Let me kind of just see if I can get this claim through. Things like that are still prevalent here in the industry. So then what happens is that us as insurance companies, we have to be a little bit more diligent. And this diligence that we have to have due to a few people acting unethically from a consumer's point makes it difficult to get claims for the genuine people as well. So, they say it takes two to tango, right? So while insurance companies for sure have to keep ethics at the heart of their products, I think consumers should also be cognizant of the fact that they have to act in good faith.
Hassan, as you know, LMD recently launched a campaign, Refresh Sri Lanka, where we are encouraging a change of mind, a change of mindset to really create a more civic-minded society. Looking at the insurance sector as it is today, how important do you think is civic-mindedness? And in your opinion, what is the role that insurance companies should play to ensure civic-mindedness?
Yeah. So firstly, let me congratulate you guys. I actually saw your article in October. I thought it was brilliant. I saw the whole campaign that you're doing over 12 months. So great initiative. It was very thought-provoking, especially that one article with some of the corporate leaders. And there was one particular area where they spoke about how bribery and corruption, it doesn't end where it ends, it goes much further. So excellent job. I really enjoyed that. To answer your question in terms of civic-mindedness, I would think civic-mindedness is pretty much at the heart of insurance principles, right? As an insurance company, what we are supposed to do is to protect both individuals, communities, corporates, and make sure that they are protected, especially at their time of need. So what it is very much our almost like civic duty is part of what we do. And I don't think we would be able to do or be successful in this industry if we don't do that, if we are not acting responsibility or taking responsibility of our civic duty. So you could say that our fate as an insurance company is very integrally tied to a well-functioning and law-abiding society. For example, if a driver breaks a road traffic rule while driving, accidents go up, right? So what that means is it is in our interest to promote a civic-minded society. And another example, burglary, looting, civil commotions, all of this, what it does is it has a direct impact on the insurance sector. So firstly, yes, civic mindedness is definitely at the heart of insurance principles. And secondly, it is also our fate is tied to it as well. So we have no choice but to, act in a manner that promotes civic mindedness. In terms of what we can potentially do, I think there's a lot that can be done. But the one part that I would like to focus on is in terms of promoting education and awareness, which I would think is probably one of the few long-term solutions. People need to be taught that from an early age that their actions have a somewhat of a longer term consequence or broader consequence to society at large. So people need to be made aware that, for example, a true cost of a bribe is not necessarily the money that you spend behind that, but rather the fact that by promoting that culture, what it would eventually do is lead to more road accidents in the future. Because what we are doing is we're enabling others also to get away if we were to, get away in that manner. So what we then need to do is see how we can promote this awareness and maybe even tie up with the government, working with schools, working with NGOs, working with institutions, and see how we can build this into society to almost ingrain this thought process into society. I could say a huge amount of other initiatives that can be done, but unless the education and awareness picks up, there's no other long-term solution to really promoting this sense of being mindful of the society at large. I know it's a very long process and seems like a very tiring process. How do you get, how would you reach out to so many people? How would you spread this across the community at large? But I think we need to start somewhere. They say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So I think that's the first step that we need to do to start education and awareness program.
We're almost at the end of our conversation, but before we let you go, any final thoughts that you would like to share with our audience today?
Yeah. So I would like to also use this as an opportunity to focus on the insurance segment a little bit. And that is also to do with the fact that why our penetration is so low. Why do we have such few, or why is it that so few people are in fact insured? And I would think that one of the biggest critical factors to having success and trying to reach out to as many people as possible is this product, what we would like, or products that we call micro insurance. So this is insurance products at extremely low prices, which is targeted at the low income groups. And especially in Sri Lanka, we have such a large low income group. We need to focus on providing solutions to that segment. We have seen insurance companies come up with these low cost products. But one of the biggest problems that we're facing is how do you distribute low cost products? Insurance is broadly based on what we would call an agency network or sales force to distribute products. And that sales force typically works on commission. So hypothetically, if I'm selling a product for 2,000 rupees, then I would pay an agent or a salesperson 10% of that to sell that, go out and sell it. So that's 200 rupees. So what then happens is no person really wants to put in all this effort to go after something that they can only earn 200 rupees in. So what it means is we have a distribution issue where while we have products in place to really penetrate the low income categories, it's just that we have no way of really distributing them. And therefore, what we need to do is increase awareness on social media, see how we can distribute these products digitally, and come up with mechanisms to try and get people educated that look, these low micro insurance products are really good for you. it would provide you with financial stability. So therefore, we need to see how we can push this through using the digital mediums. And if we are to do that, then I'm sure we could, try and secure as many people financially as possible.
We've been talking with the Managing Director of Amana Takaful Insurance, Hassan Kassim. Thank you very much, Hassan. It's been lovely having you on the show.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you as well. Thank you for having me.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.